Hey, what's going on, Pokeboard? It's Steve back here once again. In today's video, we're going to explain, basically why Pokemon get banned in Smogon. Because as of recent, there's been a lot of criticism, especially after the Megalacario ban. A lot of people saying, this shouldn't be banned and this counters this when in fact it's an actual check. So we're basically going to go over, why it's necessary for Pokemon to get banned, why Pokemon get banned, what makes a Pokemon broken and therefore need to be banned, and the difference between a check and counter, because I don't feel like many people truly understand what the difference is. So, first of all, I do want to start with saying this though. If you don't agree with Smogon tiers, or you don't like a particular band they've made, no one is forcing you to play by Smogon rules. A lot of people do like to play by Smogon rules because they find it the most competitive. But in general, Smogon never really enforce. The only time you're forced to run Smogon rules if Smogon's running a tournament or on their ladder, which makes sense because that's their stuff. So if you don't want to use Smogon rules, just find someone who doesn't want to either, and just have a battle your way. No one's forcing you to. So, with that said, let's talk about why it's necessary for Pokemon to get banned, and this is really obvious. It's necessary for Pokemon to get banned because it was never intended to be played competitively, and they've made a few adjustments in recent games to help competitive battlers, I guess. For example, in 6th Gen they brought in Fairy type to try to balance out dragons. But in general, it was never intended to be played competitively. And I mean, if it was, they wouldn't have, or they at least shouldn't have included things like critical hits, evasion, and what else is there? Stuff like confusion and stuff that in general makes the game more luck based. They should have put focused on more stuff that makes it more skill based. So that's basically necessary why it is. Why that's basically necessary why Smogon or just people make bans in Pokemon to make it more competitive because it was never intended to be played competitive. With that said and done, let's look at a few processes on how Pokemon get banned. So let's start with here, and I want to use this as an example because this is happening currently. Smogon are discussing whether to ban Swag Play, and if you don't know what Swag Play is, it's basically where a Pokemon with the ability Prankster such as Klefki or Liepard, they'll use Swagger. They'll bank on you hitting yourself in confusion, or basically banking on you hitting yourself in confusion, giving them a free turn to Thunder Wave you. Then they'll set up substitutes until they get another free turn, and then they'll start foul playing. And because your attack's been raised by 2 stages, it deals out a lot of damage to a lot of Pokemon, and it can be really hard to play against. It can be hard to beat, and a lot of people feel it's uncompetitive and basically turns the battling into a coin toss rather than actual skilled. So a lot of the community said, we don't like this strategy. Is there something can be done? So Smogon posted this thread. What this thread is, it's it basically just says, like, look, we know a lot of you complaining that you don't feel it's competitive. If we do decide to ban it, these are the options, which is to ban the move Swagger, ban the move Swagger in conjunction with the ability Prankster, or ban individual Pokemon that make the strategy effective, such as Klefki. The third one will rarely ever happen. I can't think of one example where it happened. Last gen, when Drizzle and Swiftwing were banned, they didn't ban all the Pokemon with Swiftwing, they just banned the thing in conjunction. So that way you could actually use the Pokemon with Swiftwing. So, with that said, they post the thread up, they post the options, and of course there is the option not to ban it at all, and people argue for against, and for banning it, against banning it, and all that stuff. And for lack of a better word, it's not a place where people just come and bitch and they say, look, we don't want this banned because I can't handle it, or I want it banned because I don't like playing it. People actually use statistics, and they use reason as to why. They give proper arguments as to why they want it banned. And I went to this page because I know there's a person here, and what he's done here, I'm pretty sure it says this is a simplified analysis and doesn't perfectly model an actual battle, but is relatively close. And what this does is analyzes swag play using a couple Pokemon, and if they're good against it, or if they know what their win percentage is, if they're most likely to win or lose, and then I'm not sure if he's arguing for or against because obviously I haven't read his whole argument, but he's providing his argument with statistics, which is basically the reason I wanted to show you it. It's not He's not coming in here and saying, "Oh, I don't want it. I want it banned because I don't like it." He's coming here and he's saying, I want it banned or I don't want it banned because of this, and shows evidence as to why he doesn't want it banned. So with that said and done, after that people discuss it, and the council will go discuss it, and basically they'll go discuss it and basically decide if any further action needs to be taken. This is just one example of how mechanics or Pokemon get banned. This is similar to what happened to Blaziken, Mega Kangaskhan, and Mega Gengar. They put up a thread like this saying, "Do you think this Pokemon should be banned? What are your thoughts? What are your arguments for or against it being banned?" And then they, people discuss what they think should happen, and then the council decides. But in these examples, the council does decide, but that's not what happens in all examples. So I figured of this thread here, which is a great thread. It's called Tiering FAQ, and it's really helpful if you're new, if you have don't understand what the tiers are or what Pokemon get banned. So let's get down to what is the process of banning a Pokemon, and an example of what happened. This is the recent Megalocara, and this is pretty much what will happen every time a Pokemon gets banned from now. Basically what they do, they set up a suspect test, they test that Pokemon in isolation, and they see if it's truly over centralizing the metagame. And what they do, they'll set a rating you have to get. I think for the Megalocaria it was 700 on the OU ladder and 1400 on the suspect ladder. And if you were able to get your rating that high, you could then vote. And the reason they put the rating up, make it they make it relatively high, so an above average player get it. The reason they don't just let everyone vote is because you get people saying, "Oh well, I don't want Blaziken banned. He's a starter," or Megalocaria is my favourite Pokemon. Don't ban him. And then they'll have people like that voting not to ban him when it's actually not what's best for the actual OU metagame. So that's why I guess standard is set. So educated and people who have proven they understand, and people that some of the best battlers vote rather than just everyone voting and people voting not to ban Blaziken because he's a starter. So that's basically the process that they put that Pokemon in isolation. With the example of Lucario, and Genesect, and the suspect, they took them out of the metagame as if they were banned to Ubers and see what changed about the metagame and if they were truly over centralizing. So I've said the word over centralizing a lot, and that's because it is a key factor as to why Pokemon get banned. This here basically explains why Pokemon get banned, but it's over centralization is basically the main reason a Pokemon will get banned these days. And whether that be because it's offensive, because it's supporting a Pokemon, it doesn't matter. It's just basically, if it's unhealthy, basically, for it to stay in the metagame. So with this example, we're going to use Mega Kangaskhan. Mega Kangaskhan was extremely powerful. It had very little counters, if any. There's only one counter was Sableye, and that could only switch in if it had taken prior damage, it couldn't switch in. But because it was pretty much the only thing that could really counter, you're almost forced to run a Sableye on your team if you wanted to counter Mega Kangaskhan. And when people start running Sableye, and Sableye by no means is a bad Pokemon in OU, but he's not great. And he's not even OU, he's UU. He might still be OU now, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure he's back in UU, but that's his main tier. And basically, Mega Kangaskhan was forcing people to use Sableye if you wanted to counter Mega Kanga. And being forced to use a Meteor Pokemon is a sign that it's over centralizing the metagame. It's so powerful that basically it created two kind of teams. The one team which was abusing Mega Kangaskhan and it had supporting Pokemon to try to counter its counters. So, Pokemon like Sylveon to try to get rid of Sableye so Mega Kangaskhan can sweep. And then it had teams who would specialise in trying to counter Mega Kangaskhan teams So they'd usually have a Mega Kangaskhan check like Mega Lucario, who can take a +2 Sucker Punch, and then Oko it, or and then they'd have like Sableye, a Pokemon like Kofagrigus, which I never know how to say that Pokemon's name either, but a Pokemon like that who is only a check to Mega Kangaskhan, because even though it does have Mummy, if Kangaskhan does get to +2, Crunch still 2-hit KOs. So they'd have basically with Mega Kangaskhan existing in the metagame, you created two type of teams. One's abusing Mega Kangaskhan and one trying to counter it. It created cookie cutter teams. I don't know what I said there. Yeah, it created cookie cutter teams, and basically the match was more decided of which team you brought rather than skill. And it was also, the whole metagame was revolving around Kangaskhan. There's no diversity or whatever. Therefore, it was deemed, over centralizing the metagame and banned. Once it wasn't banned, it freed up the whole metagame. People were free to use, more things, different Pokemon. They weren't forced to run Sableye or Mega Kangaskhan to try to win a match. They could actually create proper teams. So I think that's all I wanted to say. Oh yeah, an example of a support Pokemon could be Deoxys, Speed and Defense in Gen 5. What they'll do, they'll lead with hyper offensive teams, and they'll just set up hazards, they'll put up dual screens, and basically they'll just put so much, they'll support the team so much that, you could send in your Dragonite, start Dragon Dancing behind dual screens or with hazards up, and then he switches in his counter, but he has to take hazard damage, and then that counter gets low. Then the next sweeper comes in, which may be Sword Dance Garchomp, and then that guy starts running through the opponent's team. Eventually, they manage to revenge Garchomp, and then another sweeper comes in. I'm trying to think of good sweepers from last gen. Like a regular Karo comes in, Sword Dances, and then wins the game from there. So with that being said, that's an example of a support Pokemon over-centralizing the metagame and therefore needing to be banned. The key thing you need to take out of this is, if a Pokemon is really powerful and has no counters, it will be banned. If a Pokemon is over-centralizes the metagame, forcing basically cookie cutter teams. I don't know why I can't say that, but forcing you to run pretty much similar teams, or forcing you to run highly specialized and obscure counters. And basically, obscure counter is, just say Terrakion became really popular, and there's no such thing as Gliscor and Landorus T didn't exist. So people started trying to use Golurk to counter Terrakion. That'd be an example of over-centralizing the metagame, because you're bringing basically a Pokemon that's not that great in the form of Golurk to OU, and then if they don't bring Terrakion at all, then he becomes pretty much deadweight to your team, and you've basically wasted a team slot. So that's what it means here by people using highly obscure or highly specialized counters to counter a Pokemon. So that's what. So we've gone through the ban process. We've gone through why Pokemon should be banned, and what else have we gone through? Oh, what makes a Pokemon broken? So the last thing I want to talk about was checks and counters. So we go here, and I'm just going to type in this Pokemon. Hang on, Garchomp, and Mamoswine. So the definition of a counter is a Pokemon that can switch into a Pokemon and take a hit, then take another hit from that Pokemon and proceed to beat it one-on-one. Now, I've heard a lot of people go, my Mamoswine counters Garchomp, like Mamoswine counters Garchomp, or Talonflame counters Blaziken. No, they don't counter them. They're checks, they're not counters. For example, let's look at Garchomp and Mamoswine. Mamoswine rarely ever runs 252 HP, so we're going to put 4 because it needs the speed. Now look up here. Outrage, guaranteed 2-hit KO. Earthquake, guaranteed 2-hit KO. Dragon Claw, 10.2 chance of 2-hit KO. And if you put Stealth Rocks up, which again is very metagame relevant, so Stealth Rock should be considered when discussing if something counters it or not. With Stealth Rock up, it's a guaranteed 2-hit KO. And just stuff like that. So by definition, Mamoswine can't switch into Garchomp and consider it a self counter, because it can't switch in and take 2 earthquakes and then OHKO it. It is, however, a check. If I was to KO my opponent's Heatran with Earthquake, and then my opponent brings in Mamoswine, he can just click Ice Shard and has a chance to KO me, or kill me with an Icicle Crash, because he can take any move. So basically, a check is a Pokemon that can beat a Pokemon one-on-one. With the example, Mamoswine can beat Garchomp one-on-one, so it's a check, but it's not a counter because it can't switch in. Another example of this can be Terrakion. Terrakion and Landorus T, which is actually a counter, and I don't know why that happens all the time. So Landorus Therion completely counters Terrakion. If you look up here, it can switch into any one of Terrakion's move. With the Intimidate, it takes 30%, even with Stealth Rocks up. Even with Stealth Rocks up, it takes 30 to 60%, and it has zero chance to 2-hit KO him, except with a crit, and he's got a 70% chance basically to 3-hit KO. So what this means is Landorus Therion can switch into Terrakion, take a Stone Edge, take another Stone Edge, and then OHKO with Earthquake, making it a counter. Now, by definition, it does say can take any move, and if I was to switch out X-Scissor for Hidden Power Ice on Terrakion, make it a Naive Nature, and put that 4 into Special Attack, Stealth Rocks on, we come up here, and Hidden Power Ice, 4 attack Hidden Power Ice versus Landorus is 33% chance to 2-hit KO after Leftovers Recovery. If you get rid of Leftovers, just say you're running Earth Plate or something else, it's a 90%. You have a 90% chance to 2-hit KO. So now you can argue, well, Landorus T isn't a counter to Terrakion because it can't take 2 Hidden Power Ices. But that's yes, it still is a counter. Is basically what I'm trying to say. I don't know why I stuffed that up, but yes, Landorus Therion is still a counter to Terrakion. No, it can't take 2 Hidden Power Ice, but Hidden Power Ice doesn't have enough metagame relevance to justify Landorus Therion not being a counter. And basically what that means is Terrakion's never, if not rarely, run Hidden Power Ice. It has no metagame relevance because they just don't run it. Because if they do, they lose out on something else usually, and usually the drawbacks from Hidden Power Ice, the drawbacks from running Hidden Power Ice, you lose something else, and that thing might be more important to a Pokemon. So Hidden Power Ice doesn't have enough metagame relevance to make Landorus Therion not a counter. Now, when you if you ever watch Smogon tournaments and stuff, you will find people will run obscure stuff like Hidden Power Ice on Landorus to get through counters, but that's just because they're trying to run tournaments. If they were laddering, they probably wouldn't run Hidden Power Ice, and it just, like I said before, and I hate repeating myself, but it just doesn't have enough relevance in the metagame to make Landorus Therion not considered a counter anymore. So that's the difference between a check and a counter. There's one more thing I want to show you. So in the case of Mega Lucario, let's get him up. Mega Lucario. Naive, because max into special attack. Mega Lucario basically had no counters. Some people could argue that Landorus Therion is a counter to any Sword Dance set that's not running Ice Punch, but then it's not a counter because it can't take an Ice Punch. Nor can it take a Flash Cannon because it's 2-hit KO'd. To counter, and I'm sorry if you can hear that music playing next door, I do apologise for that. I don't reckon you can, but you might. So to counter Mega Lucario, there was barely anything to counter it. So people started saying, Moltres counters him. So we put Moltres in, we'll make max HP, max defense, 4 special defense. We'll just make it So depending on which one you wanted to counter, you'd specialize in defense. So we'll make it, um, have 252, and we won't include a boosting nature. And the calcs do show that Moltres. Well, first of all, Moltres is a shaky counter because with Stealth Rock up, close combat is a guaranteed 2-hit KO, and Flash Cannon doesn't quite get there. But if it's at +2, it does. But without Stealth Rock, I would agree that Moltres is a counter to Lucario. But the sheer fact that you have to start bringing Moltres to battle to counter, to have an answer for both the physical and special Mega Lucario set, meant that it was over centralizing the metagame, and this is just another example of how Pokemon got banned. You're pretty much forced to run Moltres. It's a shaky check, and if the opponent didn't bring Mega Lucario, you almost have a deadweight Pokemon on your team. So that's just another example of over centralizing the metagame. I actually do plan in future videos to go a bit more in depth on all the Pokemon that have been banned, such as Blaziken. None of the obvious legendaries such as Mewtwo. I won't go into them because they should be obvious. But Pokemon like Blaziken, Pokemon like Mega Lucario, Mega Kangaskhan. I'll go more in depth in videos of them later. But I just wanted to quickly show you that to show you another example of an offensive Pokemon over centralizing the metagame and needing a ban. With that said and done, I don't think I have anything else to cover in this video. Thanks for watching. Please leave any constructive criticism that will help me improve these videos in the future. I do apologise. I'm still not the greatest at commentary because it's just so new to me. But thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. I hope I was able to explain something. I hope I was able to explain this well enough for you to actually learn something. Thanks and goodbye.